Hey garden friends, welcome back to the garden. Things are really starting to pop, and one of them is my roses. And a lot of things coming across my feed or news feed has been about rose fertilizers. And one thing a lot of people promote, think, say is that you have to fertilize your roses. That's not always the case, and I'm going to tell you why. So if you're new here, I'm Pam, and I blog and vlog here at Flower Patch Farmhouse. And I share my experiences, what I'm learning, everything about growing a better garden, making it easier for you and more budget friendly. So follow along, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. I really appreciate the support. So, rose fertilizers. What are they, and why do many people think that you really need them? Number one, roses, just like any plant, do need certain nutrients to survive and thrive and produce flowers. And they are a heavily producing shrub or bush or climber, vine. I wouldn't say a vine, a climber, if you feed them properly. So what do roses need? Now, if you are a regenerative gardener like I am trying to be, where you really supplement your soil health, meaning with your composting, adding manures, and humates, whatever else that you think or feel or you've tested your soil and found out it needs, then many times you will not need to feed or fertilize your plants. I shouldn't say feed. Feed and fertilizing are two different things. There's a little bit of a difference. But if you are nurturing your soil health and the microbes in your soil, they are enough or can be enough to feed your roses, and you won't have to supplement hardly at all. Now, how do you go about that? I have a whole blog post on regenerating your soil and what that entails. But one way is to add compost, animal manures, and other mulch. Certain mulches, organic mulches such as fir bark mulch, do not use the tinted or dyed mulches. Those include ingredients that can harm your soil microbes, so they're not really a good choice. Go for the natural where it's untreated. That is so much better. And then, as I said, the microbes in the soil will then feed your roses, and you don't have to supplement at all unless you notice a nutrient deficiency. In any plant needs what you notice on top on the front of many fertilizers as NPK, and most fertilizers will have those numbers for you. And let's break down what those elements are and what they do. So NPK, what does it stand for and what does it do for your garden? So N, nitrogen, that is for lush green foliage and growth. P, phosphorus, that is for bloom production and root development. And K is potassium, and that helps with the overall vigor of the plant, as well as other micronutrients like magnesium, iron, and other trace elements. So those are all necessary for overall plant health, but it should be noted that those are very small amounts, and most soils have more than enough of even the phosphorus and the potassium. You usually do not need to supplement those. It is nitrogen many times that gets used up quickly. So unless you have a soil test telling you that you need those, adding them could be counterproductive. And look at this rose. This is my Crown Princess Margareta David Austin rose. Just gorgeous. I love this thing. Another one of my roses. So what are the options out there if you do need to fertilize your roses? There are synthetics, which are made chemically based. And many of them, they'll say a rose fertilizer, a tomato fertilizer, whatever. That is nonsense. If you looked out on the internet and you typed in rose fertilizers, you'll see different varieties, brand names, and they will all have a different NPK ratio. Now, the ratio for the NPK for the majority of plants, I have it in my blog post all about Rose Fertilizers, and there's a set number and it's a wide range of plants that it covers. So having a plant-specific fertilizer really is nonsense, as I said before. So that's marketing, that's not gardening. But also there's the organics. Now, organics can be slow feeding or fast feeding depending. The one that I use, especially for container plants, is a liquid. And it is organic, but what is beneficial about it is it feeds soil microbes, not just the rose. And so you're not interfering with that symbiotic relationship between the microbes and the plants, which is very, very important for long-term success. So let's go talk a little bit more about synthetic versus organic. So if your soil is not the greatest, I would actually encourage you to compost, use animal manures to feed the soil, and use the liquid fertilizer that feeds not only the plants, but the soil microbes. You're not actually feeding the soil because the soil is just a component. It's the microbes in the soil that you're feeding. But then you are invigorating everything and not just focusing on feeding or fertilizing the roses. Now, the caveat with fertilizing with synthetics on any plant is when you do that, you're interfering with the symbiotic relationship between the plants and the soil microbes, which they help each other. A good, ecologically sound garden, the plants and the microbes talk to each other. The plants will say to the microbes, hey, I need this nutrient. The microbes will produce it and give the plant the exact amount it needs. The plant, in turn, will then feed the microbes. It produces a sugar, carbohydrates for the microbes. So they are feeding each other. When you put down a synthetic fertilizer and even some organic fertilizers, you are interfering with that, then they stop talking to each other. The plant will take up the synthetic fertilizer, gets its feed, but then the microbes die. And then you have to continue to use the fertilizer. So if you focus on steering to the soil health, as opposed to just fertilizing the rose, you will end up with longer term success and you won't have to buy fertilizers as you do for a good healthy plant. Now, also, when you have a good, healthy soil, the plant is healthy enough that it puts out a vibe that bugs understand that they cannot digest what they go after, like the sap-sucking bugs, like aphids. If you have an aphid problem, that means your plant isn't healthy enough. And it is saying, hey, I'm available, come chew on me because you're going to love me. A lot of times that happens when you use a synthetic fertilizer and your plant puts out lush green growth, and that soft growth is just full of goodies that bugs notice that they can eat and will come and suck on that plant and harm it. Then you have an overpopulation of that bug, and then you hope ladybugs come in and clean it up. But if you have good soil health and the microbes and the plants are talking to each other, the plant will gain a state of health that it puts out a message to the bugs, you won't be able to digest what I have in me. And they leave it alone. And this is new science. It's called the Brix level in plants. And it's a whole science unto itself. I'm just learning it, but it is so fascinating. But it tells me that using synthetic fertilizers is really a bad idea, because then you're dependent on them. And then you always have to use them so your plants will grow. And that also builds up, there's residue. And in the chemistry world, that's called salts. That is not the same as sodium that you put on your food. This is chemical salts. And it ends up becoming too great in the soil, and that also harms the microbes. So as far as rose fertilizers, I would encourage you to go with composting, animal manures. I have, my blog post really goes into more what I do, but then I also tell you how you can go ahead and use commercial fertilizers if that's what you want to do. I'm not trying to judge you or anything else. I am just trying to let you know how you can have the healthiest garden you can and avoid the cost of having to always buy these products to put on your garden for healthier plants. And you saw my roses. My roses are beautiful. They're healthy. They're happy. I do have a bug. I've had no aphids this year. I had little ladybugs here really early in the season, but I didn't have hardly any aphids, and I was wondering about that. It could have been the winter we had, but also I have been practicing this for a few years as far as not spraying even organic sprays. I did get some from Heirloom Roses, these beneficials that are supposed to fight against the bad bugs. And that's called integrated pest management when you introduce beneficial bugs that take care of the bad bugs, etc. And that's really a much better way of going about it, because even the considered organic pesticides do damage. So avoid it at all cost if you can. So once you've gotten your soil up, your healthier plants up, all the other problems start to diminish. Now, powdery mildew, I will address that in another video. So I hope you enjoyed this. I think I answered all the questions. And I hope you enjoyed this video on rose fertilizers, and I will put the link in the description box below of the blog post so that you can read up even more on it. And I will see you in my next video. See you then. Bye.